Guitar players are notorious for not learning music theory, and it's understandable. With a resource like Tabs, you can learn a whole lot on the guitar without ever having to actually understand what's going on behind what you're playing. The problem is, if you ever want to be able to write your own songs, play guitar by ear, invent your own guitar parts, or even improvise solos, you're gonna need to know a little bit of theory. So in this video, we're gonna ignore all the extra stuff you don't need, and I'm only gonna teach you the most essential music theory that every guitar player should know. And I promise you, I'm gonna make all this stuff clear, quick, and super easy to understand. So let's get started. Now, the very first thing we need to talk about is notes. Now, in Western music, we use a 12-note system. And basically the way this works is it follows the alphabet. So we have A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. And then once we get to G, we just go back to A. Now, obviously that is only 7 notes. So we also have notes in between, and these are sharp or flat notes. So basically what this means is as we go from letter to letter, in between them, we also have a sharp or a flat. So for example, from A, the next note up would be an A sharp before it goes to a B. Now, A sharp is actually the exact same note as B flat. So depending on the key you're in is going to dictate whether it is an A sharp or a B flat note, but they are the exact same note. Now this would go all the way up the scale. So you'd go A, then to A sharp or B flat. Then from B, you would assume you go to B sharp or C flat. But there's actually something called the B, C, and E, F rule. And all this is that there is no sharp or flat in between these notes. So we go straight from B to C, and then when we get to E, we go straight from E to F. So if we go through the whole 12 notes, we would go A to A sharp / B flat, to B to C sharp / D flat, to D sharp / E flat, to E. And then because of our B, C, E, F rule, we go straight to an F next. There would be no F flat or E sharp. Then we go to an F sharp or a G flat. Then we go to a G. And then after that, we get a G sharp, or because we have to go back to the beginning, an A flat. So G sharp and A flat are the same note, and then we would just continue the cycle from there. Now, every time we arrive back at the same note we started on, we create something called an octave. And basically, to show you what I mean, if I were to start on a G note right here, and I were to play a G note up an entire octave, you can hear they're the same note. And basically this cycle would just continue upwards through the octaves or downwards through the octaves. Now, an important term to understand here before we go any further is something called a half step or a whole step, or a semitone or a whole tone. And all this is referring to is the distance from one note to the next note. So every time we move up one note or down one note, we are moving up one semitone or down one semitone, or up one half step or down one half step. A semitone and a half step are the same thing. Now, if we were to move a whole step or a whole tone, that would just mean 2 semitones or 2 half steps. So if we were to move 2 frets on the guitar, so from, let's say, this G to an A, that is the distance of a whole step or a whole tone. Where if I were to move from a G to a G sharp, that would be the distance of a half step or a semitone. And this rolls very nicely into our next topic, which is intervals. And we're not gonna go too deep into this, but all an interval is a distance from one note to another. So basically, if I were to play this note here, again, a G note, and I were to play that note right there, the distance between those 2 notes is one type of interval. The same thing would go if I were to play that G note with a different note, so. Or all of these different interval spacings have a name. It's not super important to memorize them right away. It's more just important to understand that these intervals exist. So now we've got all 12 of these notes, but if we were just to play all the notes, we wouldn't be making any music, right? So if I moved up what we would call the chromatic scale, which is just playing every single note in order, there's nothing musical about it. So starting on the low E string here, There's nothing musical about that. It probably doesn't sound very musical to you. So what we need to do is we need to turn that into music, and we do this with the major scale. Now, all a major scale is going to do is it's going to select 7 of the notes from the 12 notes that you have available and turn them into something that sounds good. Now, the best way that I have found to remember the major scale formula is to think of it like a phone number. Now, in Canada, and I believe the US, we also have our phone number set up like this. Might be different elsewhere in the world, but it's still helpful to remember. And basically, the way that we do our phone numbers is we do 3 digits and then a dash followed by 4 digits. And our phone number in this case is 221-2221. So each section is just 2s ending in a 1. Very, very easy to remember. And what these numbers reference is just the number of semitones from one note to the next. So I'm gonna start on our open E string right here. And all I'm gonna do is I'm going to play this formula. So if I go from this note and I go 2, 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, 1. And if I play it quicker, now you probably recognize that as solfège, which in English is do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. You might have even learned it in elementary school music classes like I did, but that's all we need to do to narrow down those 12 notes to the 7 that exist inside of the scale. Now we can do this exact same formula from any note we want. So alternatively, I could do it from a C note. That was from an E note. If I did it from a C note, which I'm gonna do this C right here on the A string, the 3rd fret, and I went up the same formula. All that's happening is the name of the scale is going to change to match the first note you play. So that is a C major scale. The first one we played was an E major scale. Now it's important to note that the major scale is where pretty much every single thing in Western music is going to be rooted in. So when it comes to any other scale, keys, chords, all of this stuff, it all stems from the major scale. So this scale is super important to memorize and understand. The next logical step here is chords. And the question I specifically want to answer is, why do some chords sound good together and others don't? And the reason for this is because chords exist inside of something called a key. And a key of music simply stems from our major scale. And what this means is when we play something like a C major scale, those 7 notes are the notes of the key of C major. So the C major scale contains all the notes of the key of C major. Now, what we can do to find the chords inside the key of C major is we can do something called building triads. Now, I have a whole video dedicated to just this topic, so we're not gonna get too deep into it. But basically what it is every chord that you play inside this key is just going to be taking and rearranging some notes from the C major scale. And we just do this by taking a note from the scale. So let's say we start on the C note, and then we're gonna skip one, we're gonna take the next note, then we're gonna skip another, and we're gonna take the next note. Those 3 notes are going to make up the chord with the name of that first note you started on. So in our case, that would be a C chord. Now, because the major scale is doing all the interval work for us, if we were to just play these 3 notes, so we would have a C note, we would have an E note, and we would have a G note. These 3 notes make up a major triad, and specifically the C major triad. And if I played a full C major chord, I would only be playing those 3 notes. I would just be repeating some of them. So all the notes inside this chord are just C, E, and G. Now I could do the same thing for another chord in this key. So if I went over and I started on the F note, I could do the exact same thing. So starting on the F, then we skip a note, we'd have an A, then we skip another note, we'd have a C. So F, A, and C are the notes that make up an F chord. And because the major scale that we got these notes from is doing all the work for us, it automatically makes this a major chord, an F major chord. Now I'll do this with one more chord. We'll do the A. So we get an A, we get a C, and we get an E. So if I were to play an A, a C, and an E, Your ears are probably telling you that is a minor chord. So once again, the major scale is doing the work for us to tell us whether it is a major or a minor chord. And this makes sense because for this to be a major chord, an A major chord, that C note would actually have to be a C sharp, which in the key of C major, there is no C sharp. So it automatically gives us an A minor. And this would be the case for all the rest of the chords in the key as well. If I were to play through all the chords in the key of C major, so I'll play the scale first. And then if I were to play all the chords that correspond with those notes, we've got C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor, then we've got this B diminished before arriving at our C major again. And your ears are probably telling you that all those chords sound like they flow very nicely together because all of those chords exist inside the key of C major. Now, the cool thing here is there is another formula called the major minor formula that we can apply to any major scale to get all the chords without having to go through and pick out the actual notes. So basically, if we look at the numbers next to each note in the major scale, well, those numbers will correspond with whether the chord is major or minor. So basically, the 1, 4, and 5 chords will always be major, the 2, 3, and 6 will always be minor, and then the 7th chord will always be a diminished chord. And with this formula, it just means we don't have to go through and pick out the individual notes to figure out the chords. Instead, we can just go, okay, this chord here, the 4 chord, I know in the key of C it's an F. Well, because it's the 4 chord, it's always going to be major, so then I play an F major chord. And this is kind of going to start teaching you the number system or the Nashville number system that is so commonly used among guitar players, basically just giving every single chord a corresponding number inside of a key. Because the cool thing is, if I were to go to any other key, let's say I go to the key of G major, and I were to start from a G major scale using the major scale formula, I would get these notes, so G, A, B, C, D, E, then I'd actually have an F sharp before going back to a G. Now, if I number those out and I apply my major minor formula, I would be able to see that my G, my C, and my D are all going to be major chords. And that makes sense, right? G major, C major, D major. Also, E minor or A minor. All of them sound like they fit together because they're all just pulling all of their notes from the notes inside the G major scale and giving us the key of G major. And no matter what key you go into, all of this stuff stays the exact same. So I could go into the key of B flat if I wanted to. If I started this whole thing on a B flat note, I would get a B flat major scale. All of the notes in that scale, I could number 1 through 7, and then I could apply my major minor formula, and that would give me all of the allowable chords from inside the key of B flat major. The most important thing that you should be looking at here is those numbers. Now, I teach something on this channel called chord roadmaps, and basically the idea is we use the numbers that correspond to the chord to be able to play in any key all over the fretboard. So it's very important that you start thinking of these chords as numbers inside of the key. This is a way that tons of musicians like to communicate with each other as well. So if you ever plan on playing in a band or collaborating with anyone, this can be super helpful with that as well. Now, there's just a couple other things that I wanted to cover in this video. One of those things is minor keys. Everything we did here is from a major key perspective. However, the best way to start thinking about minor keys is to use something called relative scales. So what that means is every major scale or major key is going to have a relative minor scale or minor key. And this stems from the 6th note in our major scale. So in the key of C major, we'd have C, D, E, F, G, A, and B. The 6th note there is an A. So if I played these exact same notes, I'm not changing anything, I'm just starting from the A note and ending on the A note instead of starting on the C and ending on the C, I would be playing an A minor scale. So as long as it's from the 6th note, we would have this. That right there is an A minor scale, which basically just means that C major and A minor are relative keys. And every single major key has a relative minor key as well. So if we went to G major, the sixth note in the key of G major is E. So if we played the same notes in the key of G major, so instead of starting on the G, we started on the E, the sixth note, we went E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, D, and then ended on the E, we would be playing an E minor scale. And that means that the key of E minor and the key of G major are the exact same key. The only thing that makes them different is kind of where the emphasis lies. So it's usually based more on a feeling, and that's why this can be a little bit subjective, whether a song is in a major or a minor key. Usually you can tell, but sometimes it's a little bit tough. But if it feels like the home of the song or chord progression feels like it resolves to that minor chord, well, then it's probably in a minor key. So if we're playing the chords in the key of C major, that right there, even though those chords are all from the key of C major, because that has a more minor-y feel, I would say that chord progression is in the key of A minor. Now, many people for a minor key will actually shift all the numbers over so that if it's in the key of A minor, obviously it's still got the same notes as C major, but now the A is the one because we are technically starting on that. So then people would say, oh, the one chord in A minor is that chord. But personally, I have found, especially when communicating with other bandmates and things, it's much easier to just always relate things back to a major key. So even though that chord progression has a minor-y feel, some people would say that is a 1, 6, 7 in A minor. Instead, it's a lot easier to think about it as a 6, 4, 5 in C major. Now, I know this is a lot of stuff. It's a little confusing, a lot of letters and numbers and things like that. The main thing that I'm trying to say is quite often it's best to just relate everything back to the relative major key. Now, the very last thing that I wanted to talk about here is the difference between something that is diatonic and non-diatonic. So what we mean by diatonic is something that naturally occurs inside the key. So everything that we've done here is diatonic. Every chord, every note is coming from inside the key. It's naturally occurring in there. So it is a diatonic note, a diatonic chord, diatonic scale. When something is non-diatonic, it basically just means it's being borrowed from somewhere else and it's using a note that doesn't exist inside of our key. And this is maybe a little less common in popular music, but there's plenty of songs that use chords that are from outside the key or use notes or scales that are not naturally occurring inside the key. These things are considered non-diatonic. And learning how to use these non-diatonic chords and notes can be a little bit of an art form because anytime that you add something that's not naturally occurring inside the key, it's not going to always sound super pleasant. There's going to be a little bit of some sort of dissonance, which can be great. That can be what you're looking for. But like I said, there's a bit of an art form because it definitely stands out when using something non-diatonic. We're not going to cover any non-diatonic stuff here today. The idea is just for you to know the difference between something that is diatonic and non-diatonic. Okay, so that's all I wanted to cover in this lesson. That should give you pretty much everything you need to know as far as the basics, the most essential stuff goes. You understand how notes work, a little bit about intervals, some basic major scale stuff. You know where chords come from. And this will give you an awesome foundation for other stuff that you may want to learn in the music theory realm. But if you don't want to learn any more music theory, that is also totally okay. This is going to give you a ton to work with, and it's really just going to give you enough that if you want to go through one of my other lessons or many other lessons out there, you'll now have the foundation to kind of know what people are talking about. If you have any questions at all, please leave them in the comments below. I'll be down there trying to answer every single one of them. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and please also consider subscribing to the channel here on YouTube. I release a new guitar video just like this one every single week. With all that said, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.